As you may or may not know, the majority of the battle of putting sponsons on is getting the washers and the nut started on that after it's installed in the hull. And it can be a bear cat to do. So I want to show you a few tools that I use. I want to show you actually a couple different ways that I do this. I've done this in the past. And either way works just fine. The hardest thing about putting new sponsons back on there is actually reaching into the hull and putting the washers and the nut onto the studs, because of the way the foam is laid inside the hull. There's only a little bit of a tunnel about yay big around that you could fit everything through to get everything lined up and put onto the stud that's on the sponson. So a couple tools that I use. This one here I use way more than I probably should, but this one here works out good. You see I just had a washer in there. So I'll just reach down, I can pick up a washer with this thing, and now I can thread this thing wherever I need to go inside of their hull. Once I get it installed onto the stud, I'll pull the release here, and the washer stays on there. I've never had I shouldn't say, I probably had one or two pop back off when I've done that, because the little doodads here on the ends have caught the washer and pull it off. But usually I just use this tool and put the washer on. I don't run a lock washer at all. Haven't seen a need for it. I just run regular stainless washers on there first. So that's one tool that I use. Second tool, I've got to have one of these telescoping mirrors. And this one here is a little bit nicer because it is lighted. The battery's getting dead, and this light is adjustable, so you can rotate this around. I don't know where I got this from. I don't know if it's a Harbor Freight thing at all or not, or the auto parts store or something like that. Not sure, but can't do it without this thing. I mean, I have, but this makes it certainly a lot easier. And the third thing that I use, you're not going to believe this, is heat shrink for electrical. So what I've done, I go to Harbor Freight and I usually buy one of those multi-sized packages full of heat shrink, and one of those pieces of heat shrink, it works out just perfectly to put onto the end of the stud. So put it on like that. So I cut some of those, I leave them long, about like so, 6 or 8 inches long, and then after I've installed this into the onto the hull, then I can feed my washers through there, put that through there. I can put the nut, slide that through there, and then if I can reach in there and just get the nut started like one turn or something like that, then I can pull this off and then use my socket to put that on the rest of the way. So the nut could be a little bit of a problem. If it is, I'll show you something else here that we can do to help alleviate that. Masking tape. About everybody who has put these sponsons on before uses masking tape, and I will take, me personally, I'll just take like a little 1/2 inch long piece of masking tape or so. Let me put this down here. So let me set this down on my block here, and I'll just stick the washer onto the masking tape. Then I'll put that all together, and then I can feed that into the hull and get it started that way. Now, this is something else that I've tried to use in the past, and it doesn't do too bad, a borescope. I usually use this, of course, to look inside the motors for piston wall skirt damage or something like that. But I'm going to have to use this thing to film what I'll show, because it's so tight inside of the hull, I can't show you everything with my phone or my GoPro, because it's just too tight inside of there. So this is what the stud looks like. That's actually in the bolt holding the sponson in place there. I cut it out of one of my broken sponsons. So you can see that it's got the hex on here to help keep it from spinning. as the plastic is molded around it. Plus we got a shoulder here. I guess you'd say it just tightens the sponson up against the hull a little bit better. And this is where I do something a little bit different. You can see on here, maybe you can. You see that there's the surface that I was just showing you here on the shoulder, right here. See how these are all visible. So what I've noticed as I've put sponsons on my SeaDoos over the years is, as I do this more and more often, I have a tendency to over tighten these, and I'm actually pulling the stud right out of the plastic. For me, the rubber washer, yeah, okay, I can see where it comes in handy to help seal it, but I want this to, I don't want to pull that stud out any more than I have to, and the rubber washer is really not helping the situation a whole lot. So for me, I take the stainless steel washers that I have a bunch of left over from all the SeaDoos that I've worked on and rebuilt over the years. And you can go to probably the Home Depot or something like that and get some stainless steel washers. But I prefer to put stainless steel washers on here instead of the rubber washers. And I'll just put, well, I'll use that sealant on it. I really like that stuff for my sponsons, and 3M marine grade silicone sealant. But the idea behind this is, when I put the washer on here and I go to tighten up the stud, the washer is going to keep that stud from pulling out any more than it possibly can with just that rubber washer on there. If you tighten it up too tight, the stud will pull right through the rubber washer. And I have had, I think, probably 2 hauls where I pulled these things out far enough to where this surface shoulder was actually indented into the side of the hull because I pulled it out so much. I tightened them up too tight. So for me, when I go to put the sponsons on there, I will put a stainless steel washer on there first and put my silicone around that, and then I'll go ahead and attach it to the hull to help hold that in place. To me, this is just put silicone around here isn't as important as when you get done, you'll put a bead of silicone all the way around the outside of this thing to help seal it. To me, that's the most important one, but this will certainly help keep the water infiltration out between the stud and the hole that holds the sponson onto the hull. All right, so I emptied out my stainless steel bolt bin, accumulation of last few years of jet ski stainless steel hardware, and I wanted to, so I'm looking for washers to put on this surface. Where did my other bolt go that I had for? Oh, here's one. Yeah, this is it. So this is the bolt that I have for that's what bolts are holding the sponson on. So the washers that I'm looking for, I want them to be small enough to where they're at least small enough to not go over the shoulder of that bolt, which I understand you won't be able to figure that out, see that, unless your bolt is the head of that shoulder is exposed right there. But I want to have at least a nice snug fit on there. Now, I got some washers here that are a little thinner. Here, I'll use this one for example. So this washer, that bolt washer fits on there, but you see how much bigger it is than that shoulder. So even if I put a washer on there, the shoulder's still going to try to pull through. I mean, the washer's going to sit like that, and the bolt's going to try to pull through one way, shape, or form on that. So I don't want a washer, the inside hole diameter, to be more than that shoulder if I can help it at all. And the closer to the bolt diameter that washer diameter is, the better off we'll be. And honestly, the ones that worked out the best are like the ones that have come off of the Sea-Doo. The hole diameter is so much smaller than it fits the 6mm bolt so much better, and they're a little bit thicker too as well. So these are the washers that I'm going to use. Are just some old random washers off of old Sea-Doos from other things that I've tore apart, because I like how they fit on the diameter of the bolt, and they're smaller than the outside diameter of that shoulder too as well. So when I go to pull that tight, the stud still won't pull through. This surface here is recessed below the mounting surface of the outside of the sponson, so this is lower. don't know if you can see that at all, but that mounting surface is quite a bit smaller, quite a bit lower than the mounting surface of the actual sponson itself. Now you'd think, or at least I had thought, well, I want to have washers, enough washers on there to mount so that is flush. But as I looked at the hull, I decided that is a bad idea, and let me show you why. So what I want you to see here, maybe, so I can rock this back and forth. On every single one of these holes. So that's telling me that this surface around the holes that the studs are going to go through, this surface is higher than the surrounding surface. So if I were to put washers on there to make that surface mate flat, the outside of the sponson would not be touching the hull because all the surface mounting is going to be right here around these holes. So I just want to have enough washer thickness on there so when that washer tightens up against this, it doesn't pull that stud out, and it still seats around the outside of the sponson. Alright, I decided instead of the XP Limited sponsons, I'm going to put the sponsons off my 97 GSX on there. So these are the sponsons that were on here. So the colors don't quite go well with that, but this is what came on here. It might kind of matches this rail is actually purple, not black, but I changed colors on a few different things here. So if you notice the boarding handle here and my oil and my fuel knobs, those are actually off of that SeaDoo, and that boarding rail and fuel knob and oil cap are off of this SeaDoo. So I swapped those because I like, instead of having the yellow on here, I wanted the yellow on this one. So I swapped them, and now I'm going to swap the sponsons too. So I'm going to put the sponsons off of the 97 and I'm going to put them on the 96. Plus I also want the better handling that these will provide over the XP Limiteds. Alright, it's a couple days later. Yeah, well, actually it's like the next weekend, so it's a whole week later. I think where I left off was I had just put washers on the back side of the sponsons, some stainless steel washers, so they won't pull out the stud that is cast into the plastic. And then I went ahead and siliconed them, and then I stuck them onto the side of the hull, and I got them taped on there right now. So once I get them put in place, I go ahead and just use some masking tape or whatever tape you may need. I just tape them on, tape them in place. That way when I go to put the nuts on from the other side, from the inside, hopefully they won't pop these back out. So I did say earlier I was going to use this. I was going to put this on the end of the stud and then show you how I install the washers in the nut. Well, I don't need to do that. You guys, you're smart enough to understand how I did that. So I'm just going to go right to using my, I don't even know what the heck they call this thing here, but I'm going to go ahead and use this to put the washers and the nuts on there. So that's the one tool I'll need. I'll need the my mirror, and then I have the 10mm socket, and you see I already got one nut that's kind of taped in place already there. One thing, let me set the camera down and try to explain another thing that might just help you out a little bit here. All right, let's say for instance that we needed a couple of extensions here to reach in through the foam of the SeaDoo. Let me adjust this down here a little bit. There we go. And then, so let's say we had to use 2 extensions for some reason. Now, when you go to put this nut on there and you go to screw it in place, there is a chance if you got too much tape in here, or that nut fits in the socket too tight, that when you go to pull the extension out, you might end up just pulling the extensions apart, or maybe even actually pulling it out of the socket here, and the socket will stay attached to the nut. And it's a little bit difficult to try to get this line back up in there, and you have to wiggle this around and try to get that nut to break free from inside the socket there. So in all honesty, if you have to use multiple sockets like this for some reason, it might not be a bad idea just to run some, whether it's masking tape or racer's tape or something like that. It might not be a bad idea to just go ahead and just run a roll of tape around the connections, something like that, just to help keep, so when you go to pull these things apart, that you won't actually lose a socket or an extension. It won't stay stuck in there. So when you go to pull this out, the whole thing will come out, and the nut will still be attached to the stud inside of the hull. So that's just a little suggestion that I got for you too as well. All right, so I got my, let me turn on light here. So I got my bore scope pointed down inside to through the foam tunnel where the stud is going to be at, and you can see the stud on my screen right here. So now I'm going to try to use my little extendable pincher looking thing and put my washer on and the nut on with a socket, and I'm going to use this instead of my my telescoping mirror. See how much more difficult or easy this is. The 4 washers and nuts on this side. Got the sponsons taped on. So I'm going to put this camera up on my tripod up here, and let's see how fast I can get 4 of those nuts and washers on here. So I'm doing this left-handed too, so that's not cool. All right, so if you're watching a video, this looks like it took a long time, but if you've ever had to do this before, it's really not that long of a time to do it. It doesn't take that long. All right, that's enough of that. I'm gonna go ahead and put the water box back in, run a bead of silicone around them, put the battery back in, and this thing's done. One of the ways I tried to put all these washers, the flat washer, the regular lock washer, and then the nut, when I would go to put these on, I used to do like a lot of other people, and I would tape these all together somehow, way, shape, or form. And then I decided that if I knew, let's say if I knew I was going to put my sponsons on tomorrow, I would take just a little drop of silicone, put it on the flat washer, silicone the lock washer to the flat washer, and then I would put a dab of silicone on that, and then silicone this to it. But my problem was this nut tried to cross thread when I did that, so I ended up doing the nuts separate from these two. So I used to still use that pincher tool to put that on there, and they were silicone together. Now, if you decide you want to go put a lock washer on there, that might be a better route for you to go. Something for you to experiment with. Just to give you a couple ideas, whether it's using a shrink wrap or this expanding tool to put everything together, using tape and inside the socket. I showed you a few different ways. In a nutshell, you do what works best for you. Feel free to make a comment down below to help the others out there if you have any suggestions. Sorry about the long-winded video. Hopefully you can pick your brain on how you might be able to help yourself put your sponsons back on there. But in the meantime, that's all I got for right now. We'll catch you on the next one. See ya.